Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. It was interesting making this film. Actually created an openness on set. There were so many people on the crew who like would share stories about family members or friends who had, struggling with a mental illness. And it was almost like because they were working on the film, it allowed us this license to share these stories. And I think in making the purpose of us making this film was to do that very thing. And it was amazing to see it on set and like that we were able to have this openness already, just because we were working on this story and share these things. So I felt like that created this sort of way of supporting each other and just like showing that it could be a space where people could discuss and share.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And of course, pointing out that in that question, thank you for sharing with us, is really important when talking about a film with topics like these. We have time for one more question at this time, if anyone would like.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this film, and I'm actually a social worker and was in the nonprofit sector, and am now a city council member chairing the Mental Health Disabilities and Addictions Committee in New York. And this film highlighted so many issues that we're seeing in the community around stigma, language barriers, lack of cultural competency. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for highlighting this, but also as legislators who have to create these laws that are friendly to our communities. I was just curious if there were any thoughts or ideas you had in your conversations with the family and the friends, and would love to keep up dialogue if possible as well. So I just want to say thank you. But if you had any recommendations or anything you heard from the family, I'd love to hear that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for your comments. I mean, I think it's ultimately about connection and openness, and if people are shunned and stigmatized, they're not monitored, they're not being seen, no one knows and no one intervenes until they're at crisis, right? And it's how do we create enough of that sort of support around people. I talk about the New York Times article about On Track and Why, which is this sort of support network. And I think if people can imagine programs where people struggling with mental illness are able to, sort of learn how to manage their symptoms and live, lives that they want to live, that's always super encouraging. So like my radar now, because working on this project, is up for those kinds of stories, and anything we can do to support more of those, please let us know. I definitely want to be there.
Great.
I just want to say one thing, because it's obviously a very heavy story, and I don't want everyone to leave with such a heavy heart. And I want to say that this mother's feeling of being sequestered or sequestering herself, and her love for her son is really the main theme of this. And for us to create this this love story, and to understand that she felt like this was her best option. And that is not something that we want for ourselves and for our community. And in our culture specifically, in many cultures, it's a feeling of shame and of it's just stress, they're fine. And I think if we can just talk about it and connect the dots a little bit, it helps to alleviate the spiral of it. It doesn't necessarily take away a diagnosis, but it can help to, give you outreach. And for her to feel like she didn't have trust for the system, that she felt that she was doing everything the school told her to do, she was doing what the doctor told her to do, and still she didn't quite understand, when she asks the doctor, then she's gonna get better if she does all these things, and the doctor gives her a response, she doesn't totally understand her. She says okay, but she doesn't quite get it, but she's alone. And she continues to be alone, and it's hard because even her friend says, you sound like a foreigner, that he's going to a therapist, and let me just give you let me just mix up a concoction, a tincture. And by the way, the Chinese, the medicine has been around for 5,000 years, and it does work, but you have to mix both together. And I think even at the end, she calls the police. She's doing the right thing by what she thinks she needs to do, but she's missing so much. And I know that my parents miss so much. And I think that you know, they obviously came from another country. I'm first generation, but even second, third generation, it still goes on. So the conversation has to begin, and, you know, instead of seeing this as a monstrous act, she did it from a loving place, and that is heartbreaking. And we want this to be a win for us, for the audience to take home, so they don't, if they feel something doesn't feel right, and it's really hard to say it, just try. The other option is so much worse. That's all I say.
No, amazing. Thank you for sharing.